really fast. So I have a ton I want to share with you guys in a very short amount of time. So real quickly, I got to get my clicker here. That I have to put up because that is the reason why I do Arbonne. They precious. So that is my husband, Jed, of 16 years, and our 3 sweet kiddos. And on Monday, my oldest turns 13, the same day my 5-year-old sweet love of a boy starts full-day kindergarten. So I might be in the fetal position on Monday morning, but I will have a fist stick and move on. So you guys, when she said, when I was introduced to Arbonne, I loved my job. I'm one of those people that I actually love to go to work, background in interior design and architecture. And so when I was introduced to my girlfriend's cute little Arbonne business, I thought, I'm like, thanks, but no thanks. I don't use product and I certainly don't need the business. And so I passed it off to my precious 19-year-old sister, ENVP Danielle Lager. Mistake number 1, never pass off the business. But you know, Danielle was looking to make a couple $100 a month as a college student so that she could come work with me. And you all know that she's making more than a couple $100 a month. And that was kind of how my Arbonne introduction started. So I obviously was a good sister and I bought the product and I fell in love with everything Arbonne offered. And so I was the girl that would shop in the middle of the night and Arbonnize my home. And one of the most brilliant things Arbonne has ever done is put EOAs on the internet by past professions. Because when you think you're like, as my girlfriend Shannon says, a special snowflake, and you read a whole bunch of other people who are at the exact same job as you and are doing Arbonne, you kind of go, oh, if they can do it, why can't I? And you guys, over a course of a couple of months of denial, I realized that why not me? Like, why couldn't this be an answer? You know, I always said I had time freedom, but that time freedom was my children who were 8 months old and 2 years old being at my office with me, strapped in a 5-point harness car seat next to my drafting table. So it was time freedom because they were definitely with mom, but it wasn't true time freedom. And so I saw in Arbonne an opportunity to have time freedom and still have financial freedom. And so I jumped into Arbonne. I closed my firm completely because I wanted to do it well, but I also wanted to do being a mom really well. And so that was 10 years ago. And you guys, we got to regional vice president in 16 months because I was out to prove to the world that I was not a lipstick pusher. And so all I wanted to do was for all the naysayers, all the people who thought I was having a midlife crisis. Somebody maybe even offered me medication for that. But I was like, no, kind of like Deanna said, like, I got this. Like, I know that I can make this work. And on nothing more than pure determination, I got to regional vice president. And, you know, that's kind of where the pretty stuff stops for a little while. And as quickly as I got to region, you guys, I lost my region. And the reason that I lost my region was because I was so focused on being busy that I hadn't been busy on building and blessing. And so that foundation isn't solid, right? And so that crumbled underneath me. And so, you know, out goes the wind from the sails. And I started to let doubts come into my life like a windstorm. And you know, I'm a big believer that when you have doubt, it digs ditches. And the more the doubt, the deeper the ditch. And you guys, I, over a course of 6 years, got into a ditch that like I didn't even think there was sunlight anymore. And because I had attached my worth to a title, 3 stupid little letters, RVP, which outside of this room, who even knows what that is? Like MVP, people are like, she's an MVP, not very popular. Like, we're the only ones that make those so like sacred, right? But RVP, I had attached myself and my worth to a position. And so for 6 years, I was stuck in that place of doubt. Maybe you guys have been there. You know, things like, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, nobody wants to book with me, I don't have the best skin, I could lose 20 pounds on our nutrition plan. Yeah, you do all this stuff, and you beat yourself up, and you look at some people and you think, there's just special people that can do that. And so for 6 years, I lived in that place, but here's the problem with my story. When I was in that place of woe is me, my rotten little sister was just whoop, right to ENVP. And so there's evidence all around me on my table. You know, her EOA stares at me and she comes to my house as an executive national vice president and I get to babysit her kids while she goes to Maui for a week. And, right? So I couldn't say Arbonne doesn't work, you guys, because in my family, there's 5 Mercedes. So I couldn't really use that excuse, right? We're coming after the Nelsons. True story. We are. I think we're almost there. But anyhow, you guys, so I was in this place where I was just really living a pity party. And I got to the place where I would shut down my computer about 2 months before month end. Because when I started Arbonne, there was no Facebook.
2 months?
And Facebook is not fun at the end of the month if you pretty much hate your business, right? You're like, okay, well that was good for them. And so that's how I lived. I ignored all that was happening at the end of the month because it made me realize that you're not doing what you should be doing. And so it was about 18 months ago as an area manager, about $14,000 a month, that something just different at the end of the month. I had my computer open, and last March we had a ton of awesome people promoting. And there was all these nations and regions, and instead of being like bitter and angry and poor Nikki, it was like the shake-up in my soul. And it was like, you know what, girlfriend? Figure it out. Like, you are totally wasting an opportunity. And I get emotional, and my team said, don't even tell us you're not going to cry because you tell us that all the time. So there, that was very controlled. So anyhow, I got to that place at night where this is like the stuff that I was hearing, not random. For me, it was from the Lord. It was like, discipline your disappointments. Like, I had so let disappointments determine who I was. I heard things like, you guys, this is a vehicle that we have. Use it. And so I woke up that next morning knowing I needed to get a really full calendar. And so that was the first thing I did, right? Without activity, we're dead in the water. And so I got a really, really full calendar. But then I decided, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. And you guys, with Arbonne, you've heard it all morning. We have something so different in this company than anywhere else in the world. And with this company, we have the ability to not create a title, but to create a legacy. And so that's what I woke up 18 months ago ready to do. And you guys, the first thing that I had to do, and it's been talked about so much this morning, was I had to mind my mind. And I read one of the best books I've ever read in my life called Crash the Chatterbox by Stephen Furtick. And it's a book that talks about, you know, all these voices that we believe in our head. And they're voices of lies. And you guys, when we believe lies, they create limitations. And when we have limitations, we cannot reach our full potential. We just can't, because we're bogged down by lies that are not true, that we're choosing to believe about ourselves. And so I started working on head trash. And it takes time. I'm still working on head trash. It's amazing how no matter where you are, there's always trash to take out. But you guys, I decided that the voices that I believed were going to determine the future that I got to live. And so I had to start believing things that I knew were true about me. Not because great Nikki, but because, you guys, we were created to not live ordinary lives. And when we take this vehicle, with the power that we have within us, we can do crazy things. We can create legacies, not just businesses. And so what I want you to hear is that in 12 months, we went from area to nation. And I don't want you to hear that, thanks, Beth. And I don't want you to hear that because this is about Nikki Smith. I want you to hear that because that means this time next year, I don't care where you are now, wherever you're at, whatever doubts you have, wherever you're at, we really have a choice. And what the choice is are you going to live in a place of doubt, or are you going to live in a place of decision? And this is really what had to take place in my mind, you guys, because I was living in doubt. And I had to choose that that is no longer. Doubt and fear, you know, all those things, they're not going to own me anymore. They're not going to own the future that my family gets to have. Other people's opinions, it doesn't really matter, you guys. It doesn't matter. They're all on my team now. Like, look how awesome that works out, right? They go from doubt to like, oh, that might work. But what I want to talk to you just real quickly about where are you at in your story right now? Where are you at? For me, for so many years, 6 if you want to be specific, I let my limitations become the lid to what I wanted. They were the lid. And instead I had to wake up and say, you know what, the very reasons that I have these limitations, for me it's my husband travels like 150 nights a year. I have 3 small children. I can either let that be the lid and be like, you know what, that Arbonne thing is just not going to work for me, or I can say that needs to be the launch pad for why I'm doing this. It's the same problem, it's how you look at it. Is it a lid or is it a launch pad? And so, where are you at in your story? Where are you at? Are you in a chapter that maybe feels rough? I look back now, and I think those are a lot of chapters that I probably, if I was an editor, I'd be like, I don't know if I want those ones in my book. But you guys, I couldn't be where I am today if I hadn't gone through those chapters, and they weren't even bad chapters. They were chapters that I had to go through to be able to be an MVP. You don't become an MVP, you become a leader, and then you get this great privilege of getting the title of MVP. And had I chosen to close the book, because that's really where all of us are at right now. Are you in a place where you love the chapter you're in, and if you are, I say, awesome, keep doing what you're doing. If you're in a chapter where you're like, you know what, I have stalled out, this is not how I feel like I wanted it to be, you have the choice today. You can walk out of here and you can say, you know what, it seems too hard, I can't get over rejection, I've got these fears, I've got these doubts. Or you can say, period, turn the page, new chapter. And you guys, that's really all that it boils down to, is making that decision that your book doesn't end. If I would have chose to close my book, and let me tell you, there was a lot of times where I thought, you know, maybe this just isn't for me. Maybe I should just, Danielle's special. And those things went through my head. And had I put a period and then closed my book, there's about 50 girls out here today that would have never heard about Arbonne, at least not from me. And then their best book might not be able to be written. And so I just want to encourage you guys, that we have the right and the privilege with Arbonne to have our stories, our Arbonne stories, in a legacy library. And it's how we live our lives that determines, are you just going to be another average Joe, or are you going to, because of this vehicle and because of what we get to become with Arbonne, are you going to write a story that gets to go in the legacy library? And so I just hope that every one of you, if you're in a place where maybe you feel frustrated, you feel discouraged, I encourage you to put a period, turn the page, and start a new chapter, because that was the best thing I have ever done, besides marrying my husband and having children, in my entire life. So, thank you guys so much.